God bless you guys. This is Sean here from Faith Brings Change. I just woke up, and cause I'm a night guy, so I go to work. Work 10 to 6 shift. I'm off today. I was off Wednesday and Thursday. I'm off, but I slept a while, and this day was really different because the Lord was very quiet. He didn't really come very much, or his angels didn't come very much. And I was thinking, wow, they're increasingly quiet today. Why are they so quiet? Because I can tell, they'll immediately be giving me my messages when I go to sleep. But everything was quiet today. Maybe I know why. He wanted to give me this dream. He didn't want me too agitated or riled up, because when I get certain stuff, he wanted to really let relaxation set in, so my flesh wouldn't rise up, so I could get the message he was giving. But guys, I had an interesting dream. The first one was interesting because something to do with Candyman. And I don't know if you ever seen that movie. It's a movie about this guy who basically, the backstory is that the first one was named Daniel Robitel. I don't know if you ever seen him. Tony Todd, he's African American, but the story was that he lived in an old time, and I don't want to get too much into this because I want to get into the rapture part, or at least the doctrine that is in the church. But basically, he lived a long time ago. There was a guy hiring. He would get hired. He would do travel work, paintings for people, rich people. He would paint. He was a really good painter. This one father wanted to capture his daughter's virginal beauty, so to paint her name, I think, was Caroline. And somewhere through the process, he ended up having sex with her. They were in a relationship, or at least behind the father's back. The father found out about it, and it was this whole kind of racial tension they wanted to do of a white and a black guy. The original story of Candyman, he wasn't even black. It had nothing to do with color or anything. But anyways, and they were trying to rile up, people and say, I guess, he didn't want him with his daughter, so he riled up a mob, They try to rile up racism also and say, to get a black person feels like they're attacked or something like that. Because the devil wants to create strife and drama, just like we see in the church. But anyways, they wrote him as doing that, and he gets a honeycomb, in that flash mob or lynch mob or whatever, and they bust it, and they smear the honeycomb on him. They chase him a long time. He's running hours. He's breathless. He runs out into a field. They smear that honeycomb on him. They take a meat hook. They cut off his hand. They put a hook on it, smear the honey on it, let the bees sting him all over, and then after he's dying, he looks into that mirror of Caroline's, and it says Candy, or they're saying Candyman when they're mocking him. Candyman. And his candy was the flesh of Caroline, I guess. And he's dying. He looks in that mirror and just, Candyman, like he's he's stung to death, and you see the sadness all over him. And somehow, years later, he comes back. They'd set him on fire after he died, but later he comes back, and you call his name 5 times in the mirror, and he appears and kills you. And that's basically the legend. But in the dream, it was like these people, and it was like they were okay. I think my sister was even in the dream, Alicia, but he had that hook knocking on my back, tapping. I had my back to him. I didn't even want to look at him. Jesus told me this represented the spirit of adultery, and just tapping on my back. But they seemed to have no problem with him. And there was this glass case or something, and it was broken into. And God already told me about this character, Glass, from This Is Another series, a Samuel L. Jackson character. He told me that represented idolatry, and that other guy worshiped this guy called David, or he wanted to see that there were superheroes. Those were his gods, basically, superheroes. And I know we're doing allegories, but this was like he was reading comic books, and he didn't even have a relationship with Jesus, and he didn't have any. It wasn't allegorical. He literally worshipped them. But anyways, this glass case represented the voice box. And when you give your voice to idols and speaking of other gods, and we can go after and do these things, your voice becomes breakable. And he told me before that my sister Alicia, or Alice, meaning oath to God or commit to God, it's the voice of the people that says commit to this or commit to that, whether it's the one true God or it's another God. And so later on after this, it was very quiet. I had a dream where this guy was saying to my sister, it's like they were in a line, and it was almost like childlike, and he's saying, we're saved, we're saved. And I was like, oh, that's great, you're saved, that's awesome. And then I was like, wait, let me ask him. I was like, well, what do you mean saved? Define saved. And I said, is it like you believe in Jesus and follow him and obey him saved? Or is it like you pull down your pants and masturbate and you're saved? And he said, relaxed. And I was like, relaxed? Really? Your salvation is relaxation. He told me, and I couldn't get him to stop. He was like people, they were going on about that. I just don't even want to hear that false doctrine. I don't ever let them say very much. This is why God let me have the dream, and he wanted me to give me the information of the guy's heart, because he knows if I'm too awake and I'm not put out, like I was asleep a long time, I'd get really riled up. I could mess up what he wanted to reveal. But his idea of salvation was relaxation, comfortability. If I'm comfortable, if I'm in a comfortable place, if I feel relaxed, if I don't feel fear, if there's no earthquake hitting this building, I must be saved. This is the way a lot of people in the church judge their salvation, guys. But if that were true, guys, then even the heathen and the unbeliever comfortable in having sex and doing those things and enjoying it would be saved. God told me that's what's in their heart. That's what I received. And then when I told him, look, I'm going to tell you, because this is the reason why God gave me this. I was like, brother, the Lord visited me, and he gave me the number, Jesus, gave me the number 227, told me to look up my full name, even my middle, Sean Matthew Beavers, to look it up. And I did, and it added up to 227. And he also told me I'm Elijah, or the end time Elijah, at least, the third one, basically. He said, I'm Elijah, the end time one. And he told me that the people that do this, when they pull down their pants and masturbate, or when they because he said, as long as we don't depart from God or walk away from him, we're okay. And see, this isn't in the holiness community, this doctrine. But I said, brother, when you pull down your pants and masturbate, you've already departed from the faith. You've walked away from it. You believed in another Jesus, another God's salvation. Jesus means God saves, so they wanted to get saved from the feeling of not, they wanted to get saved by pornography, of that pain of not having that. They wanted to get saved from the fear by going to the alcohol bottle. They wanted to get saved from getting in trouble by lying. These were their gods. And Candyman is the epitome of all that adultery, committing adultery with another god. And mostly it's related to sexual sin when they preach this. And so she was with him, but it was more like in that way, and she was following him. And my sister would seem to be very religious all of a sudden and follow these all of a sudden, but it would be so brief. It would be so brief, and then she'd have some spat with that person. And I would hear nothing about God. She wasn't actually following the Lord. And when I told him this stuff, and I said, hey, we have to go through the tribulation, but God's going to give me the power to do plagues. There's going to be protection. You're not going to die physically. They didn't see the benefit of that. They walked away. The place we were in looked like a Chuck E. Cheese or some little room. It looked like they were in a Chuck E. Cheese or a Christian camp or something. It looked very childish, and they walked away. And it was like very childish. And it was like my voice got stolen. My sister, Alicia, is supposed to represent my wisdom. The second witness meaning oath to God, but she got stolen from me. We used to do everything together, but there were different things that and I'm not saying that, in a bad way, but she if she would have stuck with me, I would have taught her about God in time. I would have taught her a lot of stuff, but she went off her own way, followed these kind of people. There's this guy, Stephen Furtick, that preaches, and he's not a real Christian. He's not real at all. And she's like, isn't he great? And it's kind of like the Joel Osteens and all these people. This is just like kind of Chuck E. Cheese Christianity. It's like, I just don't believe it. You know, it's ridiculous, guys. But salvation, guys, is not relaxation. When you're in a comfortable place and you're not being hit by lightning or storm, that's a blessing. That's a gift from God, that you have time to repent. But that's not actually salvation. There's a difference, guys. So how do you know you're saved? Jesus said, my sheep know me, they follow me. They listen to my voice, they follow me. A stranger they will not follow. Because, guys, at times, this is just how it's been. We've all, at some point, we have followed other voices other than Jesus. And if you haven't done that, maybe you're one of the people that I will not dare accuse you. You can come forward and say you never have. But I'll tell you, for me, for everybody I know, the people that I've looked to, they've all at some point turned away from the Lord, followed other voices. None of those times, at that time, were saved, including me. We had our names erased from the book of life when we departed from him, when we followed other voices. But when we followed the Lord, when we obeyed him like he said, he was our one master, we had everlasting life. And that's where I'm at currently in my walk. You know, I'm 1 year and 3 months clean from masturbation, that pornography stuff. I'm 1 year and 3 months clean, you know, concerning that sin. The Lord does send dreams to me sometimes to test me. I don't always pass them, but when I'm awake, I've been out of that. And as far as when those dreams, I gotta overcome. I gotta just, I don't know. But I'll tell you this, you know, it's still been the same. Whenever a person, whether it's me or whoever it is, goes away from the Lord, follows another voice, whether it's in a dream or whatever, at that point, your name's erased from the book of life. Jesus said, if you look at a woman with lust, you've already, in your heart, you've already committed adultery with her. So that's why I saw that candy man in my dream. It's a witness for just dreams also. We got to make sure we're following the Lord, whether we're awake or asleep. And that's why, and I'm not saying Jesus is going to constantly test you like this, like he's tested me, but we know Joseph, I have a calling for this Elijah thing. We know Joseph was tested until the day, you know, it says until the day basically the word of God came to pass, God tested him. So I have a lot of tests in these areas, but the demons, he protects, you know, from keeping those things out, you know. He protects. These are tests from angels, you know. They pretend to be women or different things or whatever it is, but it's a test from him, and it's projections that they can shoot out of their mind, you know, and it appears as a woman or appear as this or appear as that, you know. Or sometimes in the past it's appeared as stuff, you know, and I just got to resist the stuff. Like I used to do a lot of online shopping. I was very covetous of online buying and going to malls and things like my sister would go to sometimes, and I had to just walk through that store and say no to that stuff. It would be like covetousness, and my heart was on that of the rapture. I'd be left behind. And so, guys, we gotta resist these things, guys. We got to be very careful what doctrines we're following, because there are a lot of them out there that are lukewarm, that are designed to keep you cool and calm until the rapture, so you will really be left behind when it comes, until the first day of tribulation, because the first day of tribulation, guys, it's going to look like rapture by what happens, but no. I'm just telling you this ahead of time. There's going to be returns, at least, you know, there's going to be returns, and we had to make the people think that that it was too late for them. I'll just say that we had to, because if we didn't, they would have never repented. I don't want to go on, and say any more about that, but we're going to have 3.5 years, guys, until the actual rapture. The Lord is with me, and he's with the people, the believers, you guys on here who are listening to this stuff and obeying it, and hearkening to it. But you be a doer of the word, guys, and not a hearer only, deceiving yourself. Because we have to, if you don't do what I say, the Lord Jesus says, then I can't help you. This is what he tells me, because this message isn't mine. I'm just repeating what he's given to me only. And you have to look at the scriptures to determine for yourself whether or not you heard from God, and whether or not this is just something from another person. But read the scriptures and be careful not to read into it what you want it to say, and let the text speak for itself, guys. Read the parable about how we are the branches and Jesus is the vine, and if we abide in him, we'll bear much fruit. One of the 9 fruits of the Spirit is faithfulness. But if we don't abide in him, we're like a man or like a branch broken off, and the branches are gathered and cast into the fire. And that's hellfire, guys. And so we need to abide, remain in the teaching of Jesus, because we've let in other doctrines, other voices that have mixed into the voice of the Lord to confuse us, to dilute the message, to water it down. So it says, yeah, you have to be holy, but I'm not saying, you can't just do whatever you want. But this is what, there's a Dr. Brown guy, and I like him in a lot of ways, but he's watered down. He's let other voices in to speak. He doesn't understand the Lord when he hears the word. I listen to Dr. Brown, but I wouldn't recommend anybody else listen, because I can know the difference to what is of, these little things. And he says, but I'm not saying you could be saved 1 minute, lost one next, saved 1 minute, lost one next. Where would life be in that? Well, if you don't want to be saved 1 minute, lost one next, you can't go back and forth. You can't be like ping pong, ping pong. I'm going to go masturbate in about 5 hours. And then thinking you're going to Jesus has made some contract with you to where your name won't be erased from the book of life when you do that, and you'll still be in. That's not the way it works. You got to read the fine print carefully, guys. Jesus says if, a person that is, in the book of Ezekiel even, and it does not change. He said he didn't come to destroy the law or the prophets, guys. But if one servant, that he's confessed and everything, if he turns and begins to do all these evil things, none of the good things will be remembered that he did. Only the bad. And they say his ways are unequal for this. But he says, are not your ways unequal? And if a wicked person turn from his wickedness, begin to do righteousness, none of his wickedness will be remembered. But again, they say his ways not right, but their ways are not right. You're in the book of life when you're following Jesus, guys. When you've turned away, when you've repented, when you cleanse your heart from those things and you begin to follow him or read his word or believe in him and everything. But when you run off back into sin or the world, or you're just relaxed and you're not actually pursuing a relationship with Jesus like the heathen does, you're not saved. You don't have to be involved in a bunch of, he's not saying you have to be involved all of a sudden. I have to be loaded down. I got to be reading. And if I'm not reading the Bible every second, I'm not saved. That's not what he's saying. Can you not tell the difference, guys, between a person that is rested in the Lord in a holy Sabbath, and they've read the Lord's word for that day, or they've spent time with him, or their mind is on him and they're listening for the voice of God, and then somebody who's just sitting there, just coasting, playing video games, doing other things. They don't have their mind on the Lord. But that does not equal salvation, guys. Relaxation is not the same as salvation. This is what I was told. And so the message I received, I knew that boy didn't have the truth. I knew he was confused. It looked like a Chuck E. Cheese, guys. Christian camp or something. It looked ridiculous, to be honest. It looked like it was a 5-year-old thing, that she was following like a 5-year-old almost, and he was like a 5-year-old. So we need to grow up in the house of God, guys, and be careful what voices we're listening to. All right, guys, I love you. I hope you were edified by this. You can let me know in the comment section or anything that I missed, or anything that question you have. But I love you guys. I am praying for you. Till next time, shalom.